So, every day we open our phones, scroll for a few minutes, or honestly way longer than we should, and everything we see feels really specific to us. It feels like we're choosing what we watch, what we care about, and what we pay attention to. But at some point, I started wondering how much of that is actually our choice. So, my project is based around this question. How might we design an experience that helps users recognize when algorithmic feeds are shaping what they believe is true or important? And the reason this matters is because most of what we see online isn't random. It's filtered, it's selected, it's repeated, and usually it's optimized to keep us engaged, not necessarily informed. Over time, that can start to shape how we see the world, what feels important, what feels normal, even what feels true. And the weird part is, we don't really notice it happening on the day to day basis. So instead of just explaining that idea, I started thinking bigger. What if people could actually experience that process happening to them? My bigger vision is to create environments where people can step into a system and watch their own perspective slowly shift in real time, not through lectures or warnings, but through interaction. Like imagine two people starting in the exact same place, but ending up seeing completely different versions of reality just based on how they interact. And even beyond this project, I think something like this could exist as a kind of reverse filter, something that shows you not just what you're seeing, but what you're not seeing. Because once you realize that, it kind of changes how you trust what's in front of you. So for this project, I built a smaller version of that idea called the hidden feed. When you first open it, it feels pretty normal. You get a quick intro and some basic instructions, and then you're dropped into a feed that looks somewhat similar to TikTok and Instagram. At first, you can scroll, watch the content, maybe like something, or you can skip it entirely. Nothing feels unusual at first, but while you're doing that, the system is quietly paying attention to what you interact with, and then it starts to shift things around. Certain types of posts show up more, others start disappearing. The feed slowly becomes more one sided, and that important part is you don't really notice it right away. It just feels like the feed is just working. For this version, I focused on a more political side of it all and exaggerated the behavior just to make the shift a bit more obvious for the users who want to experiment. Then at the end, everything gets revealed. You see what kind of content you were shown, what was hidden from you, and how your own actions shaped that outcome. So instead of being told this is how the algorithm work, you actually see it happen right in front of you. In terms of how I built it, this project actually started with a lot of coding, and I mean a lot. And thankfully, I have coding experience to begin with. And so I started to use Visual Studio Code, working mostly with TypeScript and CSS, and focused on building a system that could respond to user choices and branch into different paths. Obviously, I can't really build a lot of code on my own, so Visual Studio Code has a helpful add-on on the side where third-party offers can introduce their add-ons, and as a result, I also introduced those into my project, which means I also used algorithm-based tools to help structure parts of my project while making a project about algorithm influence. It's really ironic. At first, my idea was way more straightforward. I was just going to explain how algorithms work, maybe on a slideshow or a whiteboard, but that felt kind of boring and honestly not very effective at all. So I shifted toward making something interactive instead. Early versions were pretty basic and didn't really show the effect clearly. So over time, I started pushing it more, making the feed narrower, making the changes more noticeable, and choosing a theme like politics to make the impact easier to see at the end. It became less about accuracy and more about making the experience clear to newer users. To close this off, at the end of the day, this project isn't really about saying algorithms are good or bad. It's more about the awareness of it all. Because once you realize what you're seeing might be shaped, filtered, or incomplete, you start questioning it a little bit more, especially as you go through your day to day Instagram or your TikTok feed. And I think that moment when you stop just accepting the feed and start thinking about it more in a broader aspect, that's where this project really matters. And I hope you learned something today with my project. Thank you for listening.